Hello and welcome to the Nexus Today show. Nobel Trump. The US president's been nominated for the Peace Prize and is, believe it or not, the bookmakers' favorite to win in 2019. So today we're examining his chances now that he's a deal breaker, withdrawing from the Iran nuclear agreement despite European allies imploring him not to do so. On the plus side, there are lots of good career moves with the North and the South warming up nicely. Is that thanks to Trump? And as for the Nobel Peace Prize itself, who's the famous blonde bombshell backing the Donald? Quick clue, it's not Stormy Daniels. All that and more coming up right now here in the Nexus. Hello, I'm Matthew Moore, and today in the Nexus, does Donald Trump deserve the Nobel Peace Prize? We're going to be finding out with our superb panel, including Professor Scott Lucas, who says give it to him, keep him distracted with something shiny. Nazenin Ansari, she is an Iranian journalist living here in London. She thinks if he can fix Iran and North Korea, why not? But the veteran White House journalist John Gizzi goes a step further. He's actually met the president. He says he's too good for the prize. Well, now we're all gathered, let's review the evidence, and our first report is on Trump and Iran and deal breaker.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. We will be instituting the highest level of economic sanction. Any nation that helps Iran in its quest for nuclear weapons could also be strongly sanctioned.
Yeah, I'm glad we're out of it.
Withdrawing from the nuclear agreement isolates America. I think it helps Iran.
They don't have a real plan here.
President Trump makes us less safe, less secure.
I don't know why it surprises people that someone runs for president, gets elected on the promise of getting rid of the Iran deal and then gets rid of it.
This Iran deal wasn't just with the United States, it was with large sections of the international community.
America's allies have urged the president not to do this. They are reacting tonight.
European allies releasing a statement together. It is with regret and concern that we, the leaders of France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, take note of President Trump's decision to withdraw the United States of America from the JCPOA.
He gave the Europeans and others a chance to fix it. It was not doable.
For as long as Iran abides by the agreement, Britain will remain a party to the JCPOA.
No surprise, we have a statement of strong support from Israel.
Israel fully supports President Trump's bold decision today.
Saudi Arabia tweeting out, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia fully supports the measures taken by POTUS, President of the United States.
This is the regime change crew. They're back in town, they're ascendant, and it sounds very much like that is what President Trump is hoping for.
بدنش خاک خواهد شد، خوراک مار و مور خواهد شد، جمهوری اسلامی همچنان خواهد ایستاد.
Thank you very much. This will make America much safer. Thank you very much.
Well, let's pick up on that last point with John Gizzi. John, you were in the White House shortly after the president made that little address. At the end there, he says, this will make America safer. And we're concerned about America. We're concerned about the whole world, in fact. But if you look at the world reaction, all the Europeans, the Russians, the Chinese, nobody in the international community, except for perhaps the Saudis and the Israelis, think it will make the world safer. What do you think?
Oh, I do think it will in the end, for a very good reason. By denying the regime the ability to claim it is expanding trade and commerce, the administration encourages those who have been in opposition to the regime since it came to power in 1979. Many expect that there will be demonstrations, as the kind they saw last December, and further protests, because economically the government in Tehran, the theocracy, is being squeezed a little bit harder.
But John, this deal wasn't supposed to cause regime change. It was supposed to keep the nuclear program in check. And if you listen to the IAEA, we've got their website, material from their website up here, They said Iran was in full compliance. Let's just take a look at a few of the facts here. IAEA in Iran, okay, the nuclear watchdog. Surveillance cameras from them went up 89% from 13 to 17. We also have verification activities up 152%. We have days in the field, IAEA agents there, doubled between that period. It was all going in the right direction, John.
Well, let me tell you something. All the facts you state, I agree with. And I believe that the IAEA report was accurate for now. But let me point out something to you. Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, who supported the agreement strongly and cited even other examples of where it worked, and believes the president made a mistake, nonetheless made a careful concession. And that is that a government like that in Tehran, which has a long history of lying and trying to deceive the rest of the world on other points, could easily look for venues in which to cheat on this program. Well, maybe not now, but down the line.
Okay, Nazenin, I'll come over to you quickly. The agreement made cheating like that much harder, didn't it?
It did. But if I may just go back to the beginnings of the Track 2, Track 3 that led to this agreement. It was under George W. Bush. And the intention of the Europeans and the United States was to change the behavior of the regime. Certainly, continuing this discussion forward, they zoomed in on the nuclear while they thought that they could leave terrorism and human rights aside. They achieved JCPOA, but Iran did not change its behavior. But having said that, I was of the opinion that they should keep the deal and they should tighten it, yes.
Look, if we listen carefully to what Donald Trump had to say, here's a direct quote from what he had to say at that press conference. One of his objections was, the deal allowed Iran to continue enriching uranium and over time reach the brink of a nuclear breakout. Is that a true or false statement?
Well, it was enriching uranium up to the point of, well, it had stopped. IAEA has and had verified that it was abiding by JCPOA, and I believe IAEA. I think according to the briefings of the State Department that we received, the Europeans and the Americans, what they had agreed up to a common policy as far as terrorism, a missile, etc. What they could not agree to was the sunset clause.
Scott, I saw you objecting there quietly and patiently. Please come in.
Well, a couple things. First of all, this isn't about the deal itself. Iran was complying with the deal. Iran was not pursuing breakout capacity. Donald Trump is either wrong or being deceptive. Instead, and I would like to thank John for making this clear, this is all about regime change.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, and in particular, John's contact, the National Security Advisor, John Bolton. Bolton is a long-term supporter of regime change, and this is the way they're going to try to get it. They're going to try to break Iran economically. Now, John may think that's a wonderful thing, but here's the problem. Most Iranians will not support regime change. Most Iranians may want reform of the system, but they don't want reform of the system at the point of an American gun. If they're going to change the regime, it has to come from within. It can't be from the United States trying to promote an exile group that wants to violently overthrow the regime.
Just give Nazenin a chance to come in for a second.
Yes, my issue with the criticism of regime change is two. Number one, what is wrong with changing a regime that is, you know, first of all, women in Iran, according to the Constitution, are worth half of a life. Their lives are worth half of that of a man.
Nazenin, it's not a question.
Human rights
it's not
abuses.
a question. There's no
but
argument.
At the same
just
time,
a minute, there's no question here. There's not a debate here about the Iranian regime and if it's nice or nasty. I think that's pretty much settled by the international community. The question is the expressed reason for withdrawing from the deal. It's out here now, isn't it? Regime change. I want to come to John Gizzi for a second. John, we've got pictures up here of John Bolton. Now, he was just off to the left there of Donald Trump. Okay, 1 hour after Donald Trump had that press conference, John Bolton held his own briefing at 3 o'clock Eastern time. You were there, John. It's true, isn't it? This man is a hawk. He wants to go and change the Iranian regime, and this is how he's persuaded Trump to do it.
Well, I'm not privy to the private conversations that Ambassador Bolton or Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, someone with a background in intelligence who shares the views that there has to be some change in the Middle East. I don't know what they've told the president, but I would say you certainly are seeing a change in attitude from what you would have seen with, say, General McMaster as security advisor and Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State. Now, one of the things that Ambassador Bolton did was carefully abjure the term regime change. When I asked him if the administration was in touch with the exiled community, notably the National Council for Iranian Resistance, the heirs to the late Prime Minister Mossadegh, he said, not that I'm aware of, and in no way. That's roughly what he said. That said, we saw spontaneous demonstrations, and I'd tell this to Scott Lucas, last December from the people without encouragement from an American gun, and broadcast later on Voice
Scott.
of America.
The idea is, we've got the idea. The idea is squeeze the Iranian economy until the pips squeak, and they will come begging for a new deal, or there will be regime change.
Well, John conflates two things here, and let's be extremely careful. That is, people in Iran are worried about their economic future. People in Iran are worried about their rights. People are worried about whether or not they have a regime that is answerable to them. But people are not coming out, and they will not come out if they think or they are just tools of an American administration that is trying to break them.
John, if regime change doesn't come through squeezing the Iranian economy, and God knows over the last few decades we've seen it hasn't been a successful strategy, is the White House prepared to go to war, perhaps use proxy powers, the Saudis, the Israelis, to exert military pressure on Iran?
Absolutely not. And Ambassador Bolton dismissed that suggestion at the beginning of his briefing the other day.
Scott, just one more thing. I mean, we've noticed that the oil prices have gone up because obviously the worse the geopolitical situation in the region, the higher oil prices. If Iran can't bring its oil to the market, oil prices go up. One of the main beneficiaries is Saudi Arabia. Is this just an unintended consequence, a benefit for Trump's new buddy, Mohammed bin Salman?
Behind the scenes, there's a little bit of coordination here, which is Saudi Arabia will increase production to cover for Iran dropping it, so they benefit. They get more of the market share. And indeed, some Israelis, not all Israelis, but some Israelis, some Saudis are working with the Americans on this. The problem is this is a very, very high-risk gamble that you're talking about, because Iran can then try to step it up, working with the Assad regime, working with Hezbollah, and we see which way Russia goes. We're expanding a local situation into an all-out regional conflict triggered by this withdrawal from the deal.
Scott, thank you. Well, at the end of his little speech about Iran, Trump talked much more optimistically about North Korea, as if to say, look what happens when I handle a nuclear situation. I have the power to bring back people together after a painful breakup.
Kim Jong-un, leader of North Korea, is going to be for the first time stepping over into South Korea. It is morning on the Korean Peninsula, a historic one at that. The leaders of North and South.
Kim Jong-un becoming the first North Korean leader since the Korean War to actually step foot inside of South Korea, doing that at the DMZ to greet his host, South Korean President Moon Jae-in. Korea and the leader of South Korea coming together. I do believe President Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize.
Nobel Peace Prize? Yes, sir. Well, I just think that President Moon was very nice when he suggested it. I want to get peace. The main thing, we want to get peace.
Well, you didn't expect to see that on a current affairs show, did you? But then this is the Nexus. John Gizzi, how much of this warmth between the North and the South is really down to Donald Trump?
I think quite a bit of it, because more so than recent U.S. presidents, he has taken it upon himself to be personally involved in the relations between the North and the South. And this ranges from he is first confronting Kim Jong-un, the North Korean strongman, to urging a sit-down discussion. Incidentally, the odds makers are saying it will be in Singapore now.
Yes.
And the fact that he has a very good relationship with President Moon in South Korea also adds evidence to the fact he plays a role,
Scott,
and he has.
Let me come back to you, Scott. Scott, there you go. It just shows you. Donald Trump showed everyone who's boss. He's not going to take it. He threatened a total annihilation and destruction if you mess with us. And look how well behaved they are now.
Yeah, that was the old madman theory from the 70s.
Yeah.
That if you threaten nuclear war, everyone will behave. Let's talk about what really happened, as opposed to Donald Trump saying, just because I crowed, I made the sun shine. And that is that North Korea has local interest, regional interest. It wants to break economic isolation. It wants to keep its nuclear weapons. So if it can play Trump, if it can flatter Trump and achieve that, all well and good. South Korea wants reconciliation with the North and actually is talking about economic links being restored with the North. If they can keep Trump off to the side by saying how wonderful he is, they'll do that. China, who's the big player behind the scenes, and no one's talking about a Nobel Peace Prize for the Chinese.
Yeah.
China simply wants to encourage the North and the South in those talks because it wants to encourage a region that is not following the United States, but is actually sort of detaching itself from Washington. Now, again, give Trump something shiny to play with in the corner. Give him some credit while you get on with the business at hand. That's the game that's going on here.
Well, here's one thing that Trump achieved that Obama didn't when it came to Iran, and that is the return of prisoners. So we have these Korean Americans coming back. They had been prisoners in North Korea. A great photo opportunity there for Donald Trump, and also Melania just in the background there. And let's have a listen to what Trump had to say about that.
My proudest achievement will be, this is a part of it, but will be when we denuclearize that entire peninsula. This is what people have been waiting for a long time. Nobody thought we could be on this track in terms of speed. So I'm very honored to have helped the three folks. They're great people.
What do you think, Nazenin? You're sort of nodding your head in approval there. You wish he was in charge when the Iran nuclear deal was hatched, perhaps.
Mr. Obama opened his fist to the Islamic Republic and to Mr. Khamenei, and the human rights situation, everything worsened under Mr. Obama. But let's not forget the linkage between Iran and North Korea. Since 1980s and the arms embargo, Iranians, the Islamic Republic, relied on North Korea to significantly to develop its arms program and its missile program. In 2012 and 2013, they signed two pacts that integrated this military cooperation. Every year, and this is according to CSIS, in 2015 estimate, between $2 to $4 billion a year they've spent giving money and buying missile technology from North Korea. So Mr. President Trump's strategy of decoupling North Korea from the Islamic Republic was amazing.
That's a very interesting point, Nazenin. Thank you. John, I just want to talk about trust for a minute here.
Yeah.
They say, the fake news outlets, as Donald would call them, they say that if North Korea looks at what Trump's done to Iran, they're less likely to trust him, but more importantly, even the institution of the presidency, America itself, to keep any nuclear agreement going forward. What do you make of that?
Oh, I'm not sure that he thinks that way at all. And remember something else. North Korea has a long history of untruths in the nuclear area. I don't think that any agreement that comes out of a Moon-Kim-Trump summit is going to be the last word by any stretch of the imagination.
Scott, trust.
Oh, no one goes into this to trust each other. The North Koreans are not going to denuclearize. And indeed, they told the Secretary of State, as he went to get the three detainees, they said, we have nuclear capability. So if everyone thinks that this is going to end with North Korea getting rid of nuclear weapons while U.S. troops stay in South Korea, that's the type of wishful thinking. This needs to be seen in terms of cold, hard politics, and that is the North Koreans want economic links. They want to retain their nuclear program. South Korea wants to basically encourage a regional development where they're not at risk from North Korean weapons. China wants a future which is apart from the United States. Now, if we can get that through avoiding military conflict, that's all well and good. But the idea that Donald Trump is at the center of this, or that the U.S. is at the center of this, yeah, we got to sort of pull the blinders off here as folks. Not everything around here revolves around Washington and this news cycle that exists there.
Scott, thank you. Well, let's turn to Trump being nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Now, some of you will find that pretty incredible and will perhaps be wondering, how did that happen? Well, here's how it works.
Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Donald Trump.
Fire and fury like the world has never seen.
Yes, Donald J. Trump, nominated by a group of 18 hardcore Republican congressmen who wrote a letter in his favor to the Norwegian Nobel Committee. Please consider him for, quote, his tireless work to bring peace to our world. Now, the Nobel Committee keeps nominees and nominators a secret for 50 years, but on this occasion, the congressmen seem to have made their letter public. While many people think Trump's not suitable, bookmakers have him as the favourite for 2019 with odds of 2 to 1. The prize is $1.4 million. Small change for Trump, but if he does win, he can add it to the rest.
I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second.
Now, if you're thinking you'd like to be nominated, you have to know two things. One, you can't nominate yourself, although I'm sure Trump would like to. And two, you have to be nominated by a Nobel-recognized institution or person. For example, a National Assembly or government, members of the International Court of Justice, university professors, former Nobel Peace Prize awardees, and current and former members of the Nobel Committee, of course.
If he can fix North Korea, and if he can fix the Iran nuclear deal, then I don't see why he's any less of a candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize than Barack Obama, who got it before he even did anything.
Now, if you can manage that, and you've done something for world peace, then surely you're in with a chance.
Let's go back to Scott Lucas now. Scott, if he can sort out Iran, if he can sort out North Korea, he's due the Nobel Prize. You'll write the check yourself, weren't you?
If a frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his butt when he jumped. That's a whole lot. That's a whole lot of ifs. Let's cut down to the chase here. Donald Trump is a misogynist. Donald Trump has very suspect views on race, has very suspect views on ethnic minorities. Donald Trump has been accused of being ethically compromised. Donald Trump may be at risk of impeachment in the United States. So to simply try to divert our eyes from all of that and say he's a peacemaker, well, do with whatever you want to on that. What I come down to at the end of the day is that peace relies upon people, and Nazenin's talked about it. It relies about Iranians and their communities. It relies about people in Asia and their communities. It doesn't rely on some person coming down from the mountain with tablets. Shouldn't have been given to Barack Obama in 2009, and it dead sure shouldn't be given to Donald Trump in 2018. The rest of us are doing too much hard work to give it up that easily.
But Nazenin, when we spoke before the show, you actually said if he can solve those things and he has a greater chance of doing it than Barack Obama did, then why not?
Yes, I mean, Mr. Obama was given the Nobel Peace Prize based on hope. Certainly when Mr. Obama opened his fist, change stopped. Any hope for change, real change, stopped in Iran. So I think if Mr. Trump can, not through MEK, mind you, but through really genuine grassroots support that there is for change and yearning for change in Iran, as we have been witnessing since December.
Let's John in.
First of all, I would say to Scott that, you know, his judgment of President Trump, some of which I would strongly debate him on, having watched the president with other people and on the campaign trail, if you want to judge him on things you hear about him personally, then I'd say that would rule out at least a third of the Nobel recipients over the years. My own view on giving the prize is that it has become so politicized in everything from the way people are nominated to the reasons for it, and that we grind up with choices such as Al Gore or Jimmy Carter, that the prize really has lost its meaning.
Well, let's have a quick survey of our guests now. John, would you put money on Donald Trump winning in 2019?
No.
He's the favourite. Nazanin?
I wouldn't use euros or dollars.
I would hope for a woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
You may hope for that, but Donald's the favourite. You have to live with it. Scott, no chance, right?
I'll put money on Donald Trump being impeached in 2019.
Ooh.
I'll put a bit of money on him facing criminal charges in 2019.
I'll take you up on that.
Oh,
well,
here we go. I'm a bookmaker all of a sudden.
I'll take you up on both of those.
Okay.
Well, of course, John would do that because his boss, Chris Ruddy, is a good friend of Donald Trump's for Newsmax.
Ad hominem.
John Gizzi would take it because he watches Donald Trump closely.
All right, and that's the final word.
And I'll use my personal cash.
Absolutely. We'll give it to the venerable John Gizzi there, the final word. John, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Nazanin Ansari, thank you for your contribution. And Scott Lucas, thank you for your appearance again in the Nexus. One more time, you get a free coffee. Thank you again. Well, that's all we have time for this week in the Nexus. You can catch all our episodes online, including this one. Thank you for watching. See you next week.